What's up, YouTube family? It's your boy S.Craft Blends back again with another barber tutorial, and today we're going to do a high taper with a number 2 on the side. But first, I'm going to start off in the parietal ridge area, knocking down the bulk with a number 3. Just going straight off the side, straight up through the top, not really worrying about creating a really nice blend in that area, because I'll come back with clipper over comb and clean up that top area. Plus I'm going to take some off the top. So then I drop down just a little bit under that number 3 with a 2 open, and I go straight up into that number 3, blending those together. Then I'll drop a little lower with a number 2 guard closed, and I'll clean up all the bottom except for the places really that I'm going to shave off anyways. So I'm not, cutting all that off because it's a waste of time, being I'm going to shave it off anyways. So there again, just cleaning up with that number 2, getting it ready. So I'm really picky about the hair right over the ears there and along the edges. I don't like it to hang over, so I'll take a number 1 guard, usually open, sometime closed, depending on the length on the side, and I'll just lightly use one side of the blade, the lower side of the blade, to clean that area up over the ear, so I'm not cutting too much into the number 2 area, but still giving it a nice shape and cleaning up. Now I'm creating my first guideline with my babyless skeleton trimmers, and just putting a line back there. It's not going to be completely perfect at the moment. I'll come back in and touch it up, but I just like to have my guidelines there so I can see kind of how the taper is going to look framed up. Cleaning up over the ear. One important thing for beginners, make sure you pull down the ear and get all those little hairs out. Nothing worse than having a nice clean fade and then a bush behind your ear. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, my first guideline there, it's not perfect, but it's good enough for me. And then I'm coming in with the babyless Profoil shavers, or the shavers, and cleaning that up. Now I'm going to create my first guideline using my Wall Seniors with the Master Andis Master blade on it. It's just the regular taper blade, and I create that first guideline with the blade open about 3/4 of an inch, and then I just fade underneath, closing the guard, then working with the guard a little bit more open, just blending everything underneath. Now, once you create a guideline, remember, you're not supposed to go over that guideline. You're supposed to stay under that guideline and fade everything underneath. So that's what I did. Once again, I created the guideline with the blade open, and then I close it a little bit, dropping down, blending that out until I'm all the way closed at the first initial guideline we created, blending that out. Now I've skipped the 0 guard, and I just jump in with a number 1 open, blending into the number 2. And sometimes the hair goes in different directions, or as you're working to get the line out, establishing your guideline, sometimes it just looks a little patchy, and you got to tap it with the corners, trying to get dark spots out. And some occasions like this, it's a little more difficult to get the dark spots out, even if you went over it with the same size blade, or guard rather. It still, will have that issue. So then once I did the 1 open and then dropped down and did the 1 close, then I got my 0 guard, and then I did a 0 open a little bit under the 1 closed and faded into that, and then I closed it, just working my way down towards that guideline that we created. Then I came back in with the open blade, and I wanted to show you guys at a different angle that as I was using that, you can go back and watch it, that I'm using the corners of the blade, almost kind of raking at it sometimes. And then whenever I'm having difficult times with darker spots and I'm not really getting that flow that I like, I'll grab my thinning shears and just really tap at the areas that are a little more dark or bulky, or just, has that patchy look to it, and it'll thin out those bulky areas to give you more of a consistent blend. Now there's haircuts that I do that are 30-minute haircuts, and then there's haircuts that I do that are 45 minutes and an hour, depending on how much detail that I'm going to put in it. Plus, obviously, price plays into that factor as well. This is a 30-minute haircut. I still feel like we give them a good quality haircut. However, there's 30 minutes to work with, and I give you the best clean cut I can give you in 30 minutes. But I wanted you guys to see this cut as well. Now, there again in the back, just going ahead and going right off of that parietal ridge area into the top with the number 3, kind of dropping it a little bit because we want to keep that cowlick area a little bit thicker, and so we drop down just a little bit lower. And then once the 3 went off the parietal ridge, I put the 2 guard on all the way open, and then I just blend right into that number 3, you know, just dropping down a little bit, going up into the number 3, and then I'll close that number 2 and cut off the rest, just blending right into that 2 open. Now, instead of doing my first guideline, I grabbed the number 1 guard. Being I did a 2 close, now I'm just gonna do a number 1 open, kind of run it right under that occipital bone there, and I'm just gonna do the 1 open under that occipital bone all the way across, leading me into the taper that I'm gonna do in the back. Now, a lot of times when I do a high taper, I kind of like the taper lower in the back. I don't think you should go too high. However, a lot of people, they'll see my high tapers in the front and they'll say, man, you should have did it higher in the back. Everyone has their own preference, and so if the customer says I want really high in the back, I go really high. If they don't, then, you know, we kind of keep it a little lower. So now that I did the number 1 all the way down and 1 open into the 2, now I'll create a guideline on the bottom with my trimmers and then move right into my shavers, shaving the sides and the bottom, cleaning that up. And now we go right back into our second guideline like we did on the side with the blade fully open. Now that we created that guideline with the blade fully open, then we'll close it slowly and work our way down under that line, blending it. Right now I'm going to close it halfway and just kind of go halfway up under that line. Now I'm closing it all the way, and I'll just tap at the line that we created. So it's pretty simple. If it's all the way open, we make that initial guideline, and then I'll close it halfway and cut halfway up, and then I'll close it all the way and work all the way at the bottom where I'm trying to blend out that line. And I'll touch that up a few times just to make sure I got every little hair. And now I put on the 0 guard and tie those 2 together. Tie the open blade with no guard on the bottom to that 1 that I did right below the occipital bone. We're just tying that together and really just stretching that blend out. So that's why I went a little higher with the 1, but I'm just stretching it out. So the taper is still kind of low at the bottom. However, it gives it more of an extended, stretched look, and I really like the way that comes out. I know some people really don't, and that's okay. To each his own. You know, some people think that they know exactly how a haircut should be. If it's high on the side, it needs to be high in the back. I've been cutting hair for 27 years, and guess what? There are no rules, man. I mean, you cut how you think it should look and how your customer wants it, and you'll be good. So, going right back into the number 3, knocking off that bulk, not getting as much bulk cut off in the parietal ridge area as the other side, but once again, I'm not really worried because I'll go in with my clipper over comb and even all that up. Moved right back into that number 2 guard open, just blending a little bit lower than where that 3 was, but blending up into the 3. And then I'll close that number 2 guard right now and just, you know, drop down all the way to the bottom, start blending into that 2 open. Really simple process. This is more of a fade down technique. that I'm using with the guards, but then once I establish the guideline, then I'm fading up. I switch it up a lot of times. Sometimes I'll fade down the whole time, sometimes I'll fade up sometimes, and then sometimes I fade down and then I fade up, or vice versa. Just have freedom, man. Do what you feel is best for you in the moment. Just flow with it. There again, because I don't like the hair, you know, really patchy over the ear there, I take that number 1 and I use the bottom corner, the one closest to the ear, and I put that up against the head, but I pull the clipper at the top edge out so that it doesn't dig into that number 2. I'm just trying to very lightly touch those hairs over the ear. Now that I've done that, I set my initial guideline, come in while I have my trimmer in my hand, just clean up over the ear, hit that back line, you know, just give me something to work with there. And that line's looking pretty sharp. So I like that. I like that. Taper's looking good in the back. So we can always go back and clean up any little thing that we see later. But yeah, I think it's looking pretty good. Now once again with my shaver, go ahead and shave up to the guideline. Now we go into our second guideline with the blade open. Same process we used on the other side. And sometimes you'll notice that towards the front edge, I might make it a little wider and then bring it a little thinner back towards the ear, so that way it doesn't go over the ear, because we don't want the taper just going straight up over the ear as far as that guideline. We want it to still have that angle to it. So then I went in with a number 1 open, number 1 closed, and then I'm back in with my 0 guard, just tying the 2 together like we did in the side and the back. Because there's still some spots there, I'll just keep working at it, you know, with the corners of my blade, just tapping at dark areas. And you have to stand back, work on it a little bit, stand back, look at it, clean it up a little bit, stand back, look at it, clean it up a little bit. If you have to keep working on certain spots, sometimes, like I said, it don't come out just every single time with the process, so you just keep going over that same process. Put the number 1 back on, you know, start with it open, then close it, and just go back to your 0 guard like I'm doing now, and just keep blending until you feel like those blends are tying together. So once again, right now I have that 0 guard on there, just trying to knock out some of that bulk I see that's creating that shadow. And then I went back to just an open blade, and then I'm going back to the 0 open, and just trying to work around, man, knock out those dark spots. Now I'm not going to worry about the blending shear over comb there, simply because I'm putting these lines in, and you know, the lines will cover it up. He really likes these 2 lines here. We do it every single time. You know, he don't like them too thin and he don't like them too thick, so I just try to give them a nice medium-sized line. And now I'm just coming in with that clipper over comb. Whenever I do the clipper over comb in that area, I'm keeping the comb pretty much flat with the number 3 and just kind of cutting into that heavier bulk and creating the shape that I want by turning my comb. So as I want to drop it a little lower in the back, I'll turn my my comb down at an angle, just flowing along with that shape. Now instead of using the shears on top, I'm using my clipper, and I started doing this probably about I would say 20 years ago. I worked in my uncle's shop and we had vacuums on our clippers, and basically it would suck the hair right into the clipper, and it would go into a hose, and it would go through the wall into a big vacuum in the back of the shop, so we never had to sweep. And years later, because of fighting and acting stupid, I just destroyed my hand. If you can see on my clipper hand there's a big lump. It's just shattered bones. So I can use shears, however my hands hurt so bad sometimes that it's just easier for me to use the clippers. That's why I do that. Some people are like, man, I've never seen that, that's so awesome. Well, that's why. Those two reasons, you know, that's why I do what I do. So as you see, I always start in the front middle. I stand behind them, start in the front middle, grabbing the hair section by section, working my way back to make sure I'm cutting it all the same length. And then I, you know, kind of shape my hand in a round angle to work on the sides to tie that into the number 3. And the reason I like number 3 is because the number 3 is about the same length as my finger, and it kind of really ties that in. But if it's not connected all the way, I come in with clipper over comb once again, and just try to tie that in with clipper over comb, that 3 to the long. Come in with the razor, clean it up a little bit, take my Sean Cuts hair color card, and I get in there and just spray a little enhancement on there. He likes the enhancement. And now if you notice, when I'm spraying enhancement on lines so that I don't get it on the line, I'm actually spraying the card itself with the direct power of the spray there. However, I'm letting that overspray hit the hair where I'm holding it. So I'm not spraying on the hair, I'm spraying actually on the color card, and just the overspray is what's hitting it. Now I'm throwing a little gel in there, styling it up for him, and there we go, man. That is the finished product. That little dark spot up top there is just because of the gel. But anyways, I feel like it's a pretty decent cut, man. I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, if you haven't subscribed, please do that. Hit the notification bell, and I will see you tomorrow. God bless.